Our next speaker is Tom Mackay Smith, and Tom has been studying his project on Kānuka as a silvopastoral tree for reducing hill country erosion, and he has presented at a number of field days. I have spoken to Tom over the last couple of years, and following his project has been incredibly interesting. So look, I won't spoil his presentation and ask him to come to the stage.
Hello everyone, I'm a research officer at Massey University, and I'm going to present some work I did for my PhD that finished earlier this year that looked at Kānuka as a silvopastoral tree for hill country. 2 secs, I'll just turn my timer on. Oh. Yeah, so first I'll give a bit of a background to silvopastoralism, and then I'll talk about the impacts of what I found, the impacts of Kānuka on pasture production and soil condition, and then I'll also go through a trial that we've been doing where we planted some Kānukas in hill country. So everyone's aware of what silvopastoralism is because it's already used here, and poplar and willow is the best example. And it's basically an integrative system where you have trees and pasture and livestock grazing within that, and there's an ecological interaction between the tree and the pasture. So all of the research, as far as I'm aware, on mature trees in hill country has found them to decrease pasture production under the canopy. But this isn't the case globally, and there are examples where trees can actually increase pasture production compared to open pasture. So the example on the right is the Dehesa system in Spain with oaks, and on the left, that's in Patagonia. And both these systems can actually increase pasture production compared to open pasture. So the aim was, can we do this in New Zealand? And so we decided to study Kānuka for many reasons. The first is this system already exists here, and we needed to study fully mature trees. And it also has various attributes different to poplar and willow, which we thought it might have improved relationships with the soil and the pasture. The first is it's a smaller tree, so we presumed it would have a slower reduced water use and use less nutrients up. It's also evergreen, so it might have differing impacts on nutrient dynamics and nutrient decomposition rates throughout the year. And finally, it is a native, and it's adapted to hill country conditions, so it will likely grow for more than 100 years, if not more than that. So this study, we had two study sites, one in the Wairarapa, one in Hawke's Bay, both sheep and beef farms, both hill country farms. At each farm, we targeted north-facing slopes, and all positions we looked at were 20 to 25 degrees in slope. And we basically quantified a bunch of variables under trees and away from trees and compared them. So we quantified pasture, light, soil moisture, and soil variables. So these are my results for pasture production, and we found over 100% more grass growth under the trees compared with open pasture. Yeah, you did hear me correct. It was double under the tree than open pasture. And this is the first time this has been found in New Zealand, as far as I'm aware, in hill country. So pH was similar between the tree pasture and the open pasture positions. This is organic matter and cation exchange capacity was significantly greater under the trees. Olsen P, total N, and potassium was also significantly greater under the tree. And if you look at the Olsen P values, they were very high under the tree, which is indicating livestock were concentrating nutrients under the canopy. Porosity was also significantly greater under the tree. So it wasn't just nutrient transfer, we were actually seeing a complete transformation in the agricultural environment under the tree. And so in summary, soil moisture was also similar. Soil moisture was similar between the tree and the open pasture positions, which is something that we did not expect. But the main drivers we thought for these differences was livestock activity, spending more time under the trees and concentrating in nutrients there. But also the trees might have been adding organic matter to the soil, which might have been increasing organic matter as well. Because these findings are really interesting, we're applying for some funding now to continue this work to basically overcome some of the limitations of this project. So look at this on different farms and also compare multiple species on the same farm. And we're also interested to monitor livestock activity around different tree species. The last point with this is one of my other papers on the PhD. We looked at the impacts of the trees on surface runoff and sediment and nutrient loss. And that study actually found evidence for preferential grazing for the pasture under the trees. So as well as increased pasture reduction, there was evidence for preferential grazing under the trees as well. And all of this stuff is published. I'm now going to present some results on a trial we did, because one of the main concerns people have is how are you going to plant these things? And so this was a collaboration with Mackay Smith, Smarter Targeting Erosion Control, and also Ian McIver helped us from Plant and Food. So we planted 30 seedlings we planted 180 seedlings in total on 3 farms, so one in the Wairarapa, one in Hawke's Bay, and one in Taumaranui. And at each farm we planted a north and a south-facing aspect, and we planted on a range of slope classes, so low slope, medium slope, and high slope. And the aim is basically to see, is it possible? How can you protect them? And also to measure growth rate and survival rates in a range of slope classes and a range of climates. So I planted 15 centimeter seedlings, and the first thing I did was I cleared the grass and I put 2 waratahs down next door to the seedlings. I then put a plastic netting around the waratahs and cable tied them together. So one of my key aims of this was to try and achieve cost parity with planting a poplar pole and a poplar sleeve, and we achieved this. There's one caveat to this, though, is it doesn't include planting time, and it did take more time to plant the Kānuka seedling and protect it than it did to plant a poplar pole. But the development of poplar poles and poplar sleeves have been happening for 30, 40 years. This is something that I think this could be definitely improved, and it's something that we're actively interested in working on as well. This is one of the designs that we planted at the site in the Hawke's Bay, and so we planted them at 10 by 10 in a diamond spatial arrangement, and we also planted them in the presence of livestock. So different farms had different livestock combinations. So some paddocks just had sheep, some paddocks had sheep and small cattle, and the farmer took care of the trees, and then another paddock just had large cattle. And in the sheep and small cattle paddock, there was no damage on the protection method, and the one with the big cattle, there was some damage on about 5 of them, but the rest were okay. In terms of survival, so in Taumaranui they did the best, and we almost had 100%, about 96% on average. Gladstone in Wairarapa was a bit less, about 82% on average, and Ahuriri was a bit less than that. I haven't yet had a chance to analyze the data to try and look at our climate data and work out why this might be happening. But the trees definitely did better in the north-facing slope in Taumaranui, and it was also a weird weather year, so it was drier at the Taumaranui site as well. This is just some of the best trees at Taumaranui that were growing almost 75 centimeters in that first 9 months. So they started off at about 50 centimeters, and they got to about 1.2, 1.3 meters. So some of them are really rocketing, especially on some of the really steep stuff, which was awesome to see. Here's my references, and I'd like to acknowledge, again, Manaki Whenua, Smarter Targeting Erosion Control, specifically Chris Phillips for helping me out. Also, Greater Wellington, Imarsas and helped me, and the C. Alma Baker Trust as well. Thank you.